Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Seat Academy Live. We've got our academic trainee at UWC, Shamiha Saleh. I'd just like to make an announcement that due to load shedding, we might have connection problems today, so please be patient with us. We'll try our best to get through today's episode in assisting you and obviously giving you the right information with regards to accounting, numbers, and physics and maths. Once again, one of our guests couldn't join us today, so we do apologize for that. But I am so excited to have Shamiha on here because she will be explaining why accounting is so important, different streams of managerial accounting and finance, as well as the postgraduate stream. And lastly, but not least, the bursary options available when you do decide to go into university. Shamiha, do you mind starting us off?
Good morning. So I'm Shamiha Saleh, an academic trainee at UWC. Basically, what that entails is that I've already completed my BCom accounting degree as well as a postgraduate. And this year, I'll be working at UWC, just helping out teaching within the BCom accounting stream. So in terms of accounting, why to choose accounting? So there is a preconceived misconception in relation to accounting in which students believe that it relates only to bookkeeping. It does, in a sense, entail bookkeeping. However, it's not the only option when going for accounting. So accounting opens up a range of career choices, which stems from high school all the way through. So at a high school level, what you'll find is that because the syllabus is so packed, you normally have more than one career option which you can go into. Being, for instance, when you're dealing with VAT, you have your taxation, which opens up doors in terms of taxation routes, tax specialists, whether being SA tax or DTAs, dealing with taxes of different countries. You also have things such as accounting, which is your normal bookkeeping, which you'll experience at a high school level in terms of your CPJ, CRJ, all of those journals. Then you have something called managerial accounting and finance. So managerial accounting and finance, we usually deal with the valuation, whether it being valuation of companies, sections, or products, for instance. So all of these ties in, but at a high school level, since the syllabus is so condensed, you get bits and pieces of all of these, right? The last one would be your auditing. So an example of auditing would be, I think at a high school level, we have all been at that stage where our balance sheet just won't balance. So we normally go back and we check everything else to make sure everything is actually where it should be, just to get this balance to balance. So that would be in terms of auditing, just auditing our financial statements, making sure the accounting behind it is correct. So there are a lot of different routes which you can take when actually choosing accounting. You're not limited to only going into accounting. The other thing that I want to speak about was just the technological advances and how it relates to accounting. So I think me and Melissa had this conversation over the phone, in which case she spoke about pure maths and accounting versus maths literacy and accounting. I think this was an important concept, especially when going forward looking at technological advances. So although maths literacy still allows you access to accounting streams, it wouldn't really be suitable because it doesn't prepare you enough in when looking at all of these technological advances, right? So what I mean by that is we are moving to an era where instead of doing, we are now explaining, in which case we have the computers, we have formulas, we have algorithms, which all does the calculations, right? So when looking at maths literacy, what you normally find is that they give you a formula. All you do is compute an answer. So normally it's given to you, whereas in pure maths, you need to know which data is being entered in order to go forward with the calculation, for instance. So when we are looking at pure maths, the concept that we're trying to grasp is the actual application of critical thinking. So looking at which data you have available, which data you need to actually get to that output. This also further allows you to actually grasp the critical thinking aspect, in which case you can now go from actually doing the maths calculation to explaining a maths calculation instead. And I think this is one of the very important areas, seeing as to how everything nowadays is computerized. So instead of having an accountant which would normally go and log or enter the journals, we will now be looking at accountants which are there to actually explain the journals instead of preparing them. The other thing that I want to go into was just also on the topic of technological advances. So I know that accounting majority believes that it is in terms of bookkeeping, things like that. Whereas in my experience, I have been at companies in which case I did some vacation work just to get an experience of the company itself. So what normally happens is the companies have different sections. So you'll find public companies, public audit companies, in which case they'll just be working with auditing. Then you'll find different or private companies, in which case they give you a wider range, being your accounting aspect, which is the financial aspect. Then you have your managerial accounting, you have your auditing, you have your taxation, all of those included. And then also some companies would offer, due to the fact that we are technologically advanced, some companies would offer an IT stream based in accounting. The other thing that I would like to mention is we have been, as a university, basically coming together, just looking at how to grow the program itself. So at this point in time, we are hoping that perhaps in future we could incorporate some just formulas, algorithms into the program itself, which makes it easier later on.
Okay, that's interesting to know. And Shamika, I just got a quick question. I know with regards to accounting, it's actually a more of a exercise subject, if I can put it that way, like repeating different what your scenarios that is basically discussed. As an accounting student, grade 10, 11, and 12, or even somebody that's just starting off on accounting, what is the best way for them to prepare for exams?
Okay, so within accounting, we have this thing where everything basically depends on something, right? That's why accounting is also practice-based, meaning you have to practice it through. So I know personally, I've been through it a lot of times, in which case you do one scenario, you get to a test, you do it exactly the same as the memo, and you end up not scoring that much marks. The reason for that is basically within accounting, everything depends on something. So the slightest change in a scenario could change your entire answer. And I've known working with high school students as well, they tend to get confused between when something goes in, when something doesn't go in. So in that case, what I would say is you need to keep practicing. You need to get exposure to as many scenarios as you possibly can, because the slightest sentence change in that scenario can change your entire answer.
Okay, brilliant. And then also, I know, I'm sorry, you're the only guest speaker today, so I'm going to be asking you a lot of questions. I just want to obviously give people enough information. I do understand that, a lot of kids, and I'll make an example quickly. My daughter, when she was in high school, she started high school. They mentioned that when the kids started their grade 10, they had about 30, 40 odd kids that chose accounting. And when they came to the matric, they only had 2 kids that did accounting that year. I mean, why the major drop? Is it just because the students don't understand, or what is the gap between 30 kids starting accounting and only 2 kids in matric actually doing it?
Okay, so for me personally, accounting does tend to get hard. The reason for that is accounting is not just, for instance, you have your other subjects such as maths, where it's just numbers, we're just working with numbers, or you have subjects such as history, for instance, where we're just working with writing things out. When it comes to accounting, it's sort of a mixture. So it's a mixture between having to memorize something and actually having to practice something. And sometimes that balance just isn't there. And to be honest, kids just don't feel like they have enough grasp on the topic itself to actually continue through with it. The other reason for that is everybody has, like I said, this preconceived misconception about accounting is only going to take me this route. So what usually happens is that they end up dropping the subject, thinking that, okay, I don't want to be in this, I'm just going to leave it. I'll focus on something else instead.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Because I see that that is happening, and one of the reasons why I actually wanted to include accounting into, having a talk about accounting is the fact that there is so much out there, and the fact that our kids are not actually grasping those things during school. I mean, during grade 10, 11, and 12, or at least dropping it. It's almost like a missed opportunity for them. So say for instance they drop accounting, all right, and now a couple of years after matric they decide they want to go into accounting route. Would they be able to get into accounting like a CA or anything like that, or do they have to do a gap or whatever?
So they are, I can't speak for all universities. I've only been working at UWC. So what I can say is that there are things you can go into without having accounting on high school. So accounting on high school isn't really that big of an issue. However, it does prepare you for when going into it. The reason I am mentioning this is because I had accounting on high school. I know I had a few friends that didn't have accounting on high school. Going into an accounting career whilst not having it on high school, it's just there's a big gap where you're coming in first year, you're at the university level, everything is going so fast, and not having that background to kind of just boost you a bit, you are
Mm-hmm.
going to be falling behind. And the other thing behind accounting on high school is the fact that everything is so condensed into one syllabus that when you actually get to university, it becomes a bit easier for you to start grasping these things, because now you find, okay, so when it comes to balance sheet, I'm working in this subject. I have background knowledge with the balance sheet, so the subject becomes easier. And then you have things such as your economics portion. Whereas, okay, so now I know that I had an eco subject. I did not do economics on high school. And I think that was just one of the major downfalls for me, because everybody had it so easy memorizing. They knew all the topics that were coming in. And me not doing it on high school meant I had no idea what was happening. So having to study those books instead of having that background knowledge, there's just such a major gap between the two.
Okay. So in other words, what you are trying to say now is that should a student choose accounting as a subject, it is advisable if they're going into that field that they do economics as a package during high school.
So when it comes to economics, it's kind of up to the student. So it's at the student's discretion. I know that for me in high school, I did my physics, my bio, accounting. So I had a mixed match back. So when choosing your subjects, it's not really that you have to choose economics. There are some pointers that would boost you a bit, but you also need to keep in mind that economics you'll most likely do during your first year. You'll never experience the subject again. So it's just something that you start off as a basis, and then going forward, you don't really go that deeper into economics itself. So you'll probably come across the subject once or twice, but not going forward. Whereas going forward, it would be more of the accounting itself at a high school level,
Mhm.
being following the CA route. So I had majors in taxation, auditing, managerial finance, and then accounting. So within accounting on high school, you'll find that there are bits and pieces of all four
Okay.
of your major subjects in accounting, right? So when you get to university level, it's kind of easier to just pick it apart, being, okay, so I know this portion due to accounting. Okay, maybe I didn't study this portion on high school. I didn't like this portion, so I'll have to give this subject more, basically more time just to get comfortable with the subject itself.
Yeah. Okay, no, understandable. Um, so I'd like to ask you to chat about, you mentioned about the bursary options that is available for university students. Could you take us through that, so that obviously we can give this information to our current grade 12s and obviously our future grade 12 students? How does this bursary work, and what is the requirements and things for the bursary?
Okay, so there are a few different bursaries out there for accounting students, most of which can be found online. I know when I was actually looking into bursaries, so this is just a broader aspect. So in case you don't get onto one bursary, I normally like to just provide a huge range of bursaries so that you can go out and apply. So starting off, when I was looking for bursaries, you do find bursaries from accounting firms themselves. So any auditing firms, accounting firms, Normally those who accept trainees in, they're normally giving out bursaries to students as well for just getting into university, right? So you can always check out those firms. Other bursaries, so there have been 2 bursaries that I've been on. One would be the Roland Griever Foundation. So the Roland Griever Foundation, we kind of got in touch with them when I was in high school. So normally go out to the high schools, just get in touch with the students, try to figure out whether you want to do accounting, whether you're actually adamant on pursuing a career in it. And they kind of just come out, have a chat with you guys, find out how you want to go about this. I think Roland Griever Foundation should be found online. I'm not too sure about all of the details. I haven't been keeping that much up to date. And then the other bursary would be the Tutuka bursary. So the Tutuka bursary is sponsored directly from SAICA. So in a case where you actually want to follow the CA route, you want to become a chartered accountant, you can always apply for Tutuka bursary. So Tutuka bursary comes directly from SAICA. For the Tutuka bursary, I know that maths was one of the requirements. So you had to have your maths, your English, and then obviously accounting as a subject at high school level would also be a bonus in this case. So we normally prefer students with accounting at a high school level because we find that students with accounting at a high school level do fairly better than those that didn't have it.
Okay. Now I've got a strange question that I'm asking you. You might not be able to assist me by this response, but with regards to bursaries, and I find that a lot of the universities, they may have brought down the entry levels, but I mean, if you look at 2020 and even 2021 with lockdown and classes being disruptive and kids not actually meeting that requirements that they used to get, I mean, an example would be a student that used to get 70s or 80s or whatever the case, or even 60s and above for accounting and maths and stuff. Automatically now they've done their exams, their final exams, and they end up having like something like 40, 30%, or just like, over the 30% mark. Which is, in a sense, especially when it comes to matric students, it's like, I've worked so hard all my life and I've received and I've achieved so much, these kind of marks, and automatically I get to my final exams and your marks is basically dropped 20%. How does this affect, or has there been any arrangement made to accommodate these type of circumstances when it comes to university application and even with the bursary applications?
Okay, so as for the applications, I can't speak on that. So the university itself, I know that what we have been doing is, especially due to last year, there was COVID kind of hit us all of a sudden. So we have adapted to that, being that we cannot go, for instance, even when you're looking at university level, right? So you would normally find, okay, a student would now be excluded for failing something the second time. However, due to the circumstances, that student couldn't be excluded due to the fact it would be unfair. We just had this entire crisis. It was not the student's fault. So we couldn't really blame the student for it. So in that cases, we kind of had to scrape most of the rules last year. So at this point in time, we're kind of just getting back to the norm. So what I can say is, in terms of student submissions, so normally they have to submit 2 results, right? The one being the 11 results and the numeric results. So when submitting the 11 results, I'm not too sure how the process would go, but normally they would look at that and then your results carrying through matric, meaning that, okay, now we look at how you've done throughout the year and then look at the reason I am bringing this up is because I know there were many times when my end of year mark did not really match my marks throughout the year. And it was just that one specific exam that just threw you off on that day.
Yes.
It's not that you you didn't put in the effort or you don't have the knowledge. It's just that one specific exam on that day that kind of threw you off of it.
Yeah. Now I've noticed,
Sorry, in such cases, so I am not entirely sure how the process would go in terms of selection and things like that. I'm not working on that side. However, what I can say is, even if it is that you kind of didn't reach that mark, there are different things you can do. For instance, just doing a quick year course in accounting and then switching over using that year course again. So there are many different ways in which you can still get back into the program.
So it's almost like you take a gap, not a gap year, but you do a bridging subject. Let me put it that way. So you do a bridging course for the year that you're not in university, and then obviously using that results to go into applying for obviously university, UWC, and wherever you would like to study. Am I correct? Perfect. Okay, Shamika, I think we've been online long enough. I don't know if there is anything else that you would like to say to accounting students out in general, especially to grade nines, that having to make that choice into accounting. If there's anything that you would like to say to them, why they should choose it, or just encouraging them on why it's a good option for them to choose.
Okay, so I think I've covered all the bases. The one thing out is the fact that accounting really helps you going forward. So whether it being that you want to go into accounting as a career choice, or whether it being that you perhaps just want to go into it and then start your own company, accounting does give you that option of, okay, if I do start my own company, I at least know what finances I need, or what journals I need to prepare, how my finances should be looking, just dealing with finances itself, as well as dealing with the taxation side of things. It helps you prepared for going into business on your own as well. So it's not to say that going into accounting, I have to work this route. You can always decide to actually change your mind and not work for somebody else and kind of just do it on your own.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much for your participation today. The information that you provided with regards to accounting and everything, it is a world of knowledge, and I believe it will encourage a lot of our students with regards to getting where they need to be, and hopefully encourage our students to actually choose accounting as a subject, as it's not just based on one specific career choice. As you've heard, there is several choices that you can make, and several departments that you can go and actually work in the accounting field. So Shamika, thank you so much for joining us today. I look forward to inviting you again on one of our seminars, and hopefully including some of those bursary options that you've mentioned, getting some of those companies online as well, so that we can have a very nice discussion all about accounting, and they can say what they're offering for our students. So I look forward to that chat. Thank you so much for joining us today. And then guys, for next week, we're having exciting topic. We've got the Department of Education online with us next week. I look forward to introducing you to Mr. Dion Lowe from the Western Cape, who will be joining us live next week in discussing how we can apply, or at least the process of applying for online homeschooling through the Department of Education. Thank you, everybody, and see you guys next week. Bye.